Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I am your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 82, and we are going to take a look at the Superfund sites in the state of Idaho. But first of all, I want to give a big shout out to my listeners, and just FYI, the list that I'm going off of, it's only giving me the top, how do I word this, where the most people are listening. So sometimes there are more people listening from New York on one podcast, and then other times, there might be a large segment of the population listening in from Virginia. So if I don't mention your location in my region or in my podcast, it's because it's only giving me like the top 9 to 15 regions. So there very well could be other regions listed there, because I'm learning that about my data analysis with my podcast. Because I noticed that sometimes when I look at the overall data, everybody's listed, right? But when I look at like the last 24 hours or the last 7 days or last 30 days, not everybody is listed. So it's only giving me the top regions that are listing in. So just FYI, that could include you. Let's say, for example, you're listing in from France or something. If there's only one or two of you listing in from France, I may or may not see it based on how many people from your demographics or from your area are listening in. So I guess I should just thank the entire planet for listening in, because I didn't realize that it wasn't listing everybody every single time. It was just doing the top regions. So I don't have control over that, unfortunately, on my data analysis, on the statistics that I see in terms of looking at all my listeners. But I can definitely look into that, because I was like, wait a second, something looks a little funky. But anyway, that's what that is. So let me give a big shout out to the listeners that are listed here, as well as all those that are not listed. I'm already going to give you a big shout out because I love you very much. So here we go. A big shout out to Ohio, Manitoba, Pennsylvania, Oregon, Florida, New York, Oklahoma, Texas, my lovely neighbor, Virginia, West Virginia, Massachusetts, Alabama, Arkansas, and there was another one. Oh, Rhode Island. Awesome. Good to see you there. In terms of countries, United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Okay, so let me go to the Superfund sites that are currently in Idaho, and what I will do is I will go ahead and list off the ones that are cleaned up and good to go. Now, initially when I was doing this podcast and looking at the Superfund sites, the reason why I separated out which ones are current and which ones are deleted and they're no longer active, like they're cleaned up and good to go, is because the list for some of the states we were going over were so large in terms of current Superfund sites. So it would have been like 2 to 5 hours of listing off all these Superfund sites, and then to list off all the ones that are being proposed to being added to the list, and then those that have been deleted. So that's initially why I separated it, because I felt that it would be exhausting for my listeners and also exhausting for my throat and my vocal cords. So I just kind of wanted to be considerate of your time and all that good stuff as well as the health of my throat. So that's always a good thing, right? So just FYI, if you hear some clanking in the background, I'm sitting next to one of my large windows in my kitchen, and I have the windows open and the blind up to let a breeze in, so that way it airs out my apartment. So just, I think I mentioned, I know I did mention because I was complaining about it, but I'm still airing out my apartment from when my dishwasher was backed up. It doesn't smell anymore. I ran it through twice with a really good soap that is specifically for dishwashers, and it's a lot better, but it's always good to have some fresh air, in your house, in your apartment. It's good to have nice oxygen, right? So just FYI, if you hear a lot of wind blowing in the background, I am in Oklahoma, so there is a very strong breeze outside, very strong. Like the trees bend. So we have some very tough trees here in Oklahoma. We don't have palm trees. I think palm trees are one of the strongest trees on the planet to endure high wind velocity, but I will say this, our trees here are pretty tough, because a lot of them survive tornado season. So just FYI, that's what that noise is. If there's a clanking noise or a really gushing wind noise, that's what that is, because that's how it is in Oklahoma. But let's go ahead and get started on this puppy. So we're in the state of Idaho in terms of this article. So I'm going to go through the ones that are currently active Superfund sites. which if you are new to this site, and hold on just a second, one of my doors is about to slam, and I don't want that ruckus, so hold on just a second. Hold on, I'm walking over. It's kind of like one of those things, if you have a window open in one room and then you open another one in a different room, it pulls the door shut and it slams it, and it's very startling. So I'm just going to make sure I prop this door open so that it does not cause a ruckus for you or for me, because that would definitely startle me. Okay, let me sit back down. Hold on just a moment. Okay, so again, if you are new to this podcast, thank you so much for joining me. This is a wonderful podcast to get involved in because we're learning quite a bit, and from a calm point of view, because a lot of the things that we discuss, if you are in the habit, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but if you're in the habit to reacting to every little thing like our media does, you're probably going to have high blood pressure, which I do not want for you. But this is a good way to learn how to learn new things that may be not pleasant, or maybe things you just need to be aware of, and learning how to look at it from a, hey, we can handle this, we got this. This isn't a problem. We can definitely get this fixed. We can definitely get this corrected. It's not freak out time, it's do it time, right? So that's how I look at it. I guess that's just how I was raised, and plus living here in Oklahoma, because it is such a very interesting state to live in. We have very extreme weather, and we also have a very unpredictable economy here. We really do. So when you're born and raised in a state where you have tornado season every year for several months, and then you can have blizzards and black ice and sleet, hail, snow in the fall and winter, you learn to be tough. And I'm not saying that other states are not tough, but it's just you have to have a certain type of endurance to live in certain areas. It's kind of like one of those things, like let's say, for example, I moved to Hawaii or California and I was living on the coast, or even Florida, and it's hurricane season. I literally would not know what to do. I would be very concerned, right? Because I'm not familiar with that area. I'm not sure how to live in those areas. I would love to live there. I think they're very beautiful. I would love to visit. And some of them I have already visited. But it's just one of those things. You adapt to the environment that you're in. So when you are listening to this podcast, I just encourage you, first of all, to not drink Red Bull. Do not drink anything that has a lot of caffeine in it, because caffeine already increases your heart rate and your blood pressure. And it's one of those things that, how do I word this? Oh, this is a great way to word it. So say, for example, you've already got it really tough at your job, right? And let's say the holidays are coming up, and a relative has asked to stay at your house during that time, and this is a very stressful relative, someone you don't want to be around. You don't want to live with them. Technically, you may not ever want to see them, but it's Christmas or it's the holidays. Here's the thing. If you're already having stress going on in your life, put that relative up at a hotel, or say, hey, you're going to have to stay at an Airbnb or at a hotel, and if they can afford it, let them pay for it. And here's another thing. If you can't afford to help put them up in a hotel, don't offer. You know what I mean? Let them take it as a hint that people don't want to be around them because of their behavior. That's not being mean or cruel or unfamily-like. That's being wise. My point is this. If you're already in a stressful state, don't make your stress worse. In terms of this podcast, like whenever I'm doing this podcast, I have learned, and especially when I first started this podcast, because a lot of this stuff I'm learning at the same rate and at the same time as you, especially when I'm researching this stuff. I mean, some of this stuff just shocks me. So I've learned that I can't drink a lot of Dr. Pepper. I can't drink a lot of coffee, because you don't want to have a stressful time on your heart, your lungs, or your central nervous system. And that doesn't mean that you're prone to it. It's just that we really need to be cautious about how we're viewing things and what lens we're looking at them through. That's why I tend to look at things from a business point of view, because like I've said before, it takes away the emotion, or it dulls it down and calms things down, because that way, when we are looking at something from a calmer point of view, then it's from a more rational point of view. I mean, because there are some things I've researched while doing this podcast that just really took me aback, and I was so irritated. I mean, not like angered or raged or anything, but just like, what in the world? Like, And I've just learned, okay, it's not worth it to get upset about stuff. That doesn't mean that you can't get upset or that you can't be offended or that you can't get angry about something, because God gave us the ability to get angry and to get irritated, because, we have that ability because God gave it to us, so that way we would know when injustices happen, right? We are not plants in a field. The only thing that a plant knows is when the sun is up, when the sun is down, when the wind is blowing, when it's not blowing, and when it's raining and when it's not raining. That's all it knows. Plants don't have emotions or feelings. We do, because we are human beings and we have souls, right? So being that we are human beings, we have a soul, we have a heart, a mind, and a soul. We need to take care of that and guard and protect our heart. Like, we can't afford to wear our feelings or emotions on our sleeves. So that's one reason that I started this podcast as well, was to just be informative. Almost like a news channel, be informative, but the way I view the news is like from back in the day. This is just a side note. I guess this is a 2-for-1 special for you guys and gals, but I remember when I was a child, the news was not stressful. The news was not hyped up. They didn't have overdramatic music. They didn't yell at each other. They were way more professional. The women didn't look like strippers or tarts on TV like they do now sometimes on these news shows. Like, the men surprisingly still wear suits, but it's like the women, I mean, it's just like, they look like they just came from a frat house, some of them. I'm just like, really, like, I understand that some of them have nice figures, and that's great. It's very blessed for other people, for everyone to look attractive, but there's a time and place to look a certain way. And I just feel like there's not as much professionalism in the news industry. So, whenever I do this podcast, and I do some videos as well, I keep it very professional, because I'm not trying to cause stress in anyone's life, because I know what it's like to have stress, and I don't want to make anything worse. I just think that we should be aware of things, and I think things should be professional, because I've learned over the years, and mind you, I'm not old, not by any means, but I've learned over the years, I like things to be cool, calm, and couth, right? Especially when the situation is tough, especially when the news is hard to take. And also, I want to make sure that I look my best and I'm not being provocative, I'm not being a tart, which I never am, but, just to be cautious on that kind of thing, because I am conservative and all that good stuff. But I think it's better to be conservative and be professional and be businesslike than to be all those other things I just listed, because it takes away from your message. And so I think it's better to be genuine, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So just FYI, if you're new to this podcast, do not drink a lot of coffee before this podcast or during it. Maybe after. I would drink minimal amounts of caffeine if you are. Do not drink a bunch of coffee. Do not drink a bunch of soda unless it has no caffeine in it, like Sprite or 7-Up, which I think doesn't have caffeine, but they are loaded with sugar, so just be careful with that. And I'm not against sugar. Sugar is great. We need sugar technically, but just be cautious about your levels. Do not drink Red Bull. Please do not drink any energy drinks. I don't think those are good for the heart anyway. So you just need to be careful how you stimulate your body, because whatever you ingest, whether it's a drink or a soda or food, whatever you consume is technically a form of medicine. I'm not a herbalist, but here's the thing: our body doesn't know the difference between when you're taking antibiotic and when you're eating food. It processes it exactly the same way. It goes through your digestive tract, right? Where it differs is the mechanism in what you're consuming. So that's the difference. So just so you know, whatever you consume is medicine for you. Whether you are consuming whole wheat bread or you are consuming white rice. Both of those I love, because I know brown rice is super healthy for you, but I can't stand the taste of it. Give me white rice any day, right? But anyway, I just wanted to mention that side note or disclaimer before I start this, just in case there's anybody new, because I do see that this podcast is growing. More and more countries are listening in, which I think is great. That's absolutely wonderful. I love to see people from other countries listening in. It just warms my heart. I love that, because I've met people from other countries, and it just makes things feel more complete. You know what I mean? I mean, I love my country. I love the United States. I love my fellow man, woman, and child. I love the citizens here, but I also technically love the planet, and I love to meet other people from other countries because even though we are different, we're also very similar. So I think it is possible to get along. And I'm not saying that as a wishy-washy chicken soup for the soul kind of thing. I think chicken soup for the soul books are BS. Excuse me for being so blunt, but I've never gotten anything out of that because I believe in black and white, yes and no, say it like it is kind of thing. But that's probably because of the way I was raised in Oklahoma. Like you can't BS your way through life here in Oklahoma. It's too tough. Like you have to be built for tough to live here and to endure the things that we go through. So that's why there are different states that first of all have different accents, different dialects, different mannerisms, but they also have a different way of looking at living everyday life just because their everyday life is different. You know, let's say for example, you're from Massachusetts or something. You know, your way of life is completely different than mine and vice versa, right? I would still love to meet you, visit you, you know, see your state. Those things are wonderful, but I know going in that whenever I meet someone new, it's literally a new relationship, right? It's a new friendship, it's a new acquaintanceship, you know, it's a newfound friendship, whatever the case may be. But it's one of those things that you come, how do I word this? You meet people where they're at, you know what I mean? So being that I know that to be true and you know that to be true, I think that already creates a level of tolerance, and that's good. And I don't mean tolerance as in you tolerate anything and everything under the sun. I'm not talking about that, because when you tolerate anything and everything under the sun, you're basically selling out your morals and values. And plus, if someone really loves you and cares about you, they would never ask you to sell out any of those things. If anything, they would encourage you to stand the test of time and to enjoy your life and to basically trust God and do good, right? So FYI, anyone new that's listening in, which I do know there are some new people listening in, I just wanted to give a disclaimer and just kind of a semi-safety guideline on that, because a lot of the stuff we discuss is serious, but it's not one of those things that you should just live in a serious moment all the time. You know, I've learned over the years to be able to process serious information in a non-emotional way. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that I'm cold or calloused or don't have empathy or sympathy. If anything, it means I do have empathy and sympathy. It's just, how do I react to it? Am I reacting to this appropriately or inappropriately? So I just wanted to give that heads up right there. I know that's kind of a long opening, but I do know that there are more and more people listening in. And I don't always give that disclaimer or give that advice, you know, or kind of have a kindly suggestion. So I just want to make sure I was covering all my bases, because I love you guys very much, and I want to make sure that everything is easy peasy for you. Because as I end, you know, all my podcasts, I'm not ending it right now, but I'm just saying that whenever I close my podcast out each and every time, I always pray for you. I always pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And I truly do mean that. And so that's why I always try and make these podcasts as calm as possible. But also just say it like it is, because I do believe in speaking the truth and standing up for what's right, because that's how you fight injustices. You know what I mean? So that's always a good thing. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on this puppy. This again is the state of Idaho. We're going to take a look at, first of all, the current Superfund sites that are active in Idaho. So let's see here. The first one is Bunker Hill. Oh, that's awesome. Bunker Hill. I love that name. Bunker Hill Mining, and I think it's metallurgical, I think. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I've never seen that word before. But it is located in the county of Shalom. And let me see what this says. It says Bunker Hill Mine and Smelting Complex was a large smelter located in Kellogg, Idaho. Let's see. When it was built, it was the largest smelting facility in the world. Okay. Then Shoshone. Let's see how many people live there. As of 2020, there are 13,169 people living there. The issue with this one is the Coeur d'Alene River Basin. I'm not sure I pronounced that. Looks French. I apologize for mispronouncing that. But the Coeur d'Alene River Basin contains millions of tons of mine tailings, waste rock, and ore concentrates. Soil sediments, groundwater, and surface water are contaminated with heavy metals. including cadmium, lead, and zinc from former mining and smelting operations. This one was added to the National Priorities List September 8, 1983. The next one is Eastern Machoud Flats contamination. It is located in the counties of Power and Bannock. Power County is, it has, as of 2010, 7,817 people living there. Bannock has, as of 2020, has 87,018 people living there. The issue with this one is groundwater and surface water contamination by arsenic and phosphorus from phosphorus ore processing plants, off-site soil contamination from airborne release of fluoride, radium-226, and cadmium, on-site soil contamination by cadmium, chromium, copper, lead, nickel, silver, vanadium, zinc, radium-226, and fluoride. This one was added to the National Priorities List August 30th, 1990. The next one is Idaho National Laboratory, and this is from the Department of Energy. This one is located in Butte County, Clark County, Jefferson County, and Bingham County. So they've got 4 different counties that this Superfund site has affected. So Butte County has 2,574 people living there. Clark County has 790 people living there. Jefferson County has, as of 2010, 26,140 people living there. Bingham County, as of 2010, has 45,607 people living there. The issue at this Superfund site is groundwater contamination by hexavalent chromium, iodine 129, strontium 90, I think that's technetium 99, tritium, carbon tetrachloride, and TCE, soil contamination by heavy metals, let me see here, including lead and mercury by VOCs and by radionuclides, including cesium-137, strontium 90, and plutonium. This one was added to the list November 21st, 1989. The next one is Kerr-McGee Chemical Corp., Soda Springs. Let's see what it tells me about this. Not much. Okay, so this one is located in the county of Caribou. Caribou County, as of 2010, has 6,963 people living there. The issue with this one is surface water, groundwater, and solid waste contamination by vanadium, arsenic, molybdenum, I'm not sure I pronounced that word, manganese, tributyl phosphate, and total petroleum hydrocarbons. This one was added to the list. That's going to be October 4th, 1989. The next one is Monsanto Chemical Company, Soda Springs. It is also located in Caribou County. The issue with this one is groundwater contamination by cadmium, selenium, nitrate, and fluoride from phosphorus ore processing plant. Soil on-site and nearby buffer properties contaminated by radium-226 blown from ore stockpiles. This one was added to the list August 30th, 1990. The next one is Mountain Home Air Force Base. It is located in the county of Elmer. The county of Elmer, as of 2010, has 27,038 people living there. The issue with this one is groundwater contamination by TCE, aviation fuel, and benzene from aircraft maintenance and industrial operations. This one was added to the list August 30th, 1990. Now, because this is a small list, I'm going to go ahead and list off the ones that are cleaned up and good to go. So the first one that is cleaned up and good to go, no longer a problem, is Arcom Drexler Enterprises. This was located in the county of, I think it's Kootenai. And Kootenai has 171,362 people living there. The issue with this one was site soil contamination by VOCs, heavy metals, including lead and mercury, acid, PCBs, and PCP, from waste oil recycling, asbestos contamination in site buildings. This one was cleaned up and good to go as of December 23rd, 1992. The next one that is cleaned up and good to go is Pacific Hide and Fur Recycling Company. This one was located in the county of Bannock. The problem with this one is soil contamination by PCBs, lead, and other inorganic compounds from scrap metal disposal. Excuse me, let me get a drink real quick. My throat is getting dry. Okay, so this one was cleaned up and good to go as of November 4th, 1999. And the last one that is cleaned up and good to go is Union Pacific Railroad Company. It is also located in the county of Bannock. The issue with this one was groundwater contamination by heavy metals, PAHs, and organic compounds from Union Pacific's wastewater treatment facility and an adjacent tie treatment plant. That's interesting. Okay, so that one was cleaned up and good to go as of September 22nd, 1997. So we are done with this puppy. So that is good. Let me take a look at my list. And probably the next one we will do will be the state of Illinois. Or we might look at those environmental laws or pacts. I'll kind of decide on what all I can research and whatever I can squeeze down into a good podcast. So that is always good. Squeeze it like a lemon, right, and make lemonade. Okay. So until next time, I pray that you guys are happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.